Hi there and welcome to the channel. This is part 4 of the guide to keeping chickens for beginners. I've done parts 1, 2 and 3, that's linked in the description below, so feel free to check those out. Today's video is going to be a frequently asked questions video. So I've got a list of questions here that I'm just going to go through, and there'll be questions, some of them that are obvious and that you'll know, others not so. But again, like all my other videos, I'm going to assume that you're in a position where you're in two minds whether to buy chickens, you haven't bought them before, you don't fully know what it all entails, so this is just a bit of a basic how-to guide to keeping chickens. If you've watched some of the other videos, some of the questions here may well be repeated a little bit. I've tried to keep it as different as possible, just to give a good variation of the questions. So if you haven't checked the other ones out, feel free to check those out. So again, this is a brand new YouTube channel. My aim is to upload everything I do in the allotment with growing veg, looking after my chickens and doing little builds. So if that sounds like it's for you, give it a subscribe, and let's get going with the video. So question number 1, how many chickens should I buy? It depends on the space, obviously. You shouldn't just buy one chicken, it should be at least 2. They are sociable, so I'd say a good start is around 4 hens, so that'll give you a constant supply of eggs, but you won't get too many. You'll probably find you're still giving some away, but I'd say 4 is a good number, but obviously it depends on circumstances and space. So how many eggs will you get? Good layers, on average, will give you around 300 to 320 eggs a year. You generally get 1 a day, with the odd day skipped. Egg production during the winter and the darker nights does drop off a little bit, although if you've got sort of 3, 4, 5 hens, then you'll probably still get an egg or 2 a day, because they all won't stop laying on the same day. It'll be a bit of a mixture. So when will they start laying? So presuming hens are young, most breeders tend to sell them around 16 weeks. That is the time roughly when they'll start, around the 16-week mark, anywhere sort of between 16 to 20 weeks. It also depends how settled in your hens are, what the surroundings like. If they feel comfortable, they'll lay quicker, but I'd say around 16 to 20 weeks for that one. How much space do they need? The books and all the theory and things will tell you 1 square metre per hen. If that's all you can afford, then that's fine, that is totally fine. I've got mine in the allotment, so I do tend to give them a bit more space. They're still in an enclosure. If you check out some of my videos, I've got a daily hen routine, so I'll just show you what my daily routine's like, so you can check that out. I can give you an idea of how big my space is, but I like to go 2 metres squared. That gives them enough space to keep out of each other's way, because sometimes they need to. They'll sort of scratch around and mingle together, but if the dominant hen is around, that's the pecking order, so they'll each have a place, flock. So it just gives them enough space to get away if needs be. And just to keep it interesting as well, if they're cooped up in you know, a small space, that's it's not the best really. So as much space as you can give them is probably the best answer. Should you wash the eggs? If you plan on giving them away to friends and family, or selling them, if you're going to be buying lots of chickens, I'd definitely wash them. If you're just having them for yourself, I tend not to wash mine unless there's like big clumps of mud or poo on, then obviously you'd want to get rid of that. It tends to be more like staining, so there might be stains on them from the mud and poo and things. I just leave them. Been eating those eggs for years, it's absolutely fine. So which hens are the best layers? So there's 3 really that I'd say. It's the Rhode Island Red, Orpingtons and Leghorns. So I'd say they're probably 3 of the most prolific. Obviously other hens will lay eggs as well. Some hens are bred for show, so they might look nice but not lay as many. You might get, I don't know, sort of 100, 150 over the course of the year. And some are just bred to lay, so they'll be prolific. You'll pretty much get an egg every day. So how long will chickens live? This depends on a number of factors really. Obviously the genetics of the hen, the condition that they're living in. If it's clean and comfortable and pleasant, they'll live for longer. They'll almost certainly get to 5 years and over. So an average, very rough average, is 5 to 10 years. Some people have had hens, the same hen for 15 to 20 years. That's on the excessive side. You'll be lucky if you do get that, but obviously it's possible. But I'd say an average is 5 to 10 years. Just going back to the eggs, so why are eggs different colours, and is there a difference? No difference in terms of nutrition. It's just in the makeup and the DNA of the hen to produce different coloured eggs. Brown eggs, I think people tend to be more familiar with, but no benefits to that. I've just got a new hen which I've talked about in previous videos, and that's laying white eggs. So I get a mixture of brown and white, and no difference whatsoever. So why do they need grit and oyster shell? In amongst sort of your food and sort of your daily feeding of them and things, you might every so often want to just throw in a handful of grit or oyster shell. You might have heard of the expression, as rare as hen's teeth. Hens don't have teeth. So in order to break down the food, the pellets and things, they need grit. So this acts like the teeth and it grinds everything down. The oyster shell is a source of calcium. You can also feed them the crushed eggshells if you slowly bake them in the oven first and crush them all up and feed them back to the hens. They must be crushed up though, because otherwise they'll sort of, if you're giving them like half an eggshell or full eggshells or whatever, they might start pecking their own because they'll be familiar with the shape and things and the colour. So make sure they're well crushed up, and just throw a handful in the coop, and they'll just peck on them as and when, and that gives them the calcium needed to keep laying eggs. So is it okay if a hen lays an egg with a thin shell or a misshapen egg? That's absolutely fine, you can still eat them. It just means the shell hasn't formed properly on that particular one. It's no sign of a problem if it's just happening every now and again. It's absolutely fine. You do get the odd misshapen egg, not drastically misshapen, just a little sort of the pointy end of the egg might be a bit more pointy or a bit flatter, something like that. So it's not, you're not going to get a triangle egg or anything. Again, nothing to worry about, absolutely fine, and you can eat them as normal. So will my pets attack them? So if you've got cats and dogs and things, will they attack them? Now that obviously depends on the setup you've got, whether they're free range and they're roaming around the garden or the allotment, or if they're in a coop. I think it's a case of you know your own pets really, and you know what they're like with birds and things and other animals. I think it's just a case by case basis. I'd say generally cats are less inclined to go for them. They tend to be a bit standoffish. Dogs, it depends on the dog, it really depends. So it's a case of knowing your own pets and just making a judgment call on that. Are they good with young children? They can be. Some breeds are sort of more placid than others and will let you pick them up and things and stroke them more than others. So yeah, it just depends on the breed. So research your breeds. Generally, I'd say they're okay, but it's fantastic if you have got young children, because it really teaches them and gives them confidence and things. And you know, there's a lot of good lessons to be learnt when it comes to looking after hens. So yeah, they're really good for young children, I'd say. Cockerels are a different story altogether, and for the purposes of this video we're only going to be talking about hens, because I very much doubt you're going to be buying a cockerel straight away if you haven't kept hens already. So do hens peck and scratch? They can do, more peck. It's just out of curiosity, it's not because they're being violent or anything. If you sort of walk in the coop and they might just have a little peck at your clothes or anything, if you're holding your finger out like that, you know, then they might do, especially if it's through the bars, or the cage rather. So yeah, they might do, so you just got to be careful around young children. It just nips a little bit, it doesn't particularly hurt that much, but again for a young child it might be a bit of a shock more than anything. So will hens scratch and eat my garden and plants and things? So if you're keeping hens in your garden, you know, if you're a king gardener and you've got flowers and bedding plants and things like that, the hens will just tear them apart. Basically, they'll eat anything and destroy it. So it's best to have them cooped off if you are sort of integrating the two. And again, in the allotment, you want them in a coop because they will just eat everything and peck at everything and scratch all the beds and things. So yeah, definitely coop them, keep them in a coop. So a couple of different terms that you might be reading about and want some clarification on. So the pecking order. So basically, when you get your new flock, they'll establish their own pecking order. You'll have the top hen going through to the bottom hen. It's who's basically like the top dog, really. Who's the more dominant hen. So they'll sort that out for themselves. That'll take anywhere from a couple of days to a week, really, and they'll just stay in that order. There might be a little bit of feather pecking and things. Nothing too drastic. This is normal. The only time you'll have to sort of step in is if it's really bad and there's sort of blood and things, because if there's blood, then all the hens will be attracted to that, and it could get really nasty and could potentially, in extreme circumstances, lead to the chicken actually being killed. So if that does happen, you have to remove the chicken, get it in a separate area, and just sort of reintroduce it once you know, it heals up and things. So yeah, it shouldn't happen, especially when you buy in all new hens. That's only more inclined to happen if you're introducing a new hen to an existing flock. So if you're buying 4 or 5 new hens, popping them in the coop and in the hen house, it's a new environment for everyone, and they'll just naturally establish the pecking order. So what's a point of lay, or POL? So when you're going to be buying your hens, and you might be looking on a few websites and things, you'll keep coming across the term point of lay. That's basically means the time period in which a hen is supposed to lay eggs. So a point of lay hen would be around the 16-week mark. It basically means it's going to be laying any time soon. So what is a pullet as opposed to a hen? So a pullet is basically a teenage hen, a young hen, until it starts laying, and then it becomes a hen. So it's just another phrase for a hen. It's got nothing to do with a cockerel or anything. It's basically a young hen. What are bantams? Bantams are basically miniature hens, a smaller version. For every breed of hen, I think you'll probably get a bantam breed as well. These are particularly good for young children. They're a bit smaller. The eggs are smaller as well, which might be a downside. You'll have to weigh that one up. But yeah, so they require less space, you know, less food. So if you have got young children, bantams are probably better than getting hens. Similar sort of price. They might be, I can't remember if they're a little bit more or a little bit less, but there's not much difference anyway. So yeah, so check them out, really. As I say, especially if you've got young children. What is a broody hen? So a broody hen is when a hen wants to sit on the eggs. So if you're leaving the eggs in, you know, if you're only collecting the eggs once or twice a week, then you're going to get a collection of eggs, and the hen is more inclined to sit on them and try to hatch them. There'll be nothing there unless you've got a cockerel. So she'll be basically just sitting on eggs, and they're never going to hatch. This is a bit of a problem because it's hard to stop the hen being broody. They're less inclined to eat, so the best thing is really just to keep removing the eggs continuously, and the hen will probably never go broody. It's only really if you're leaving the eggs in there. So do they smell? So if you're keeping hens in your garden, your back garden, you might want to know if they smell, if the neighbours can smell them and things. I'd say the overriding answer is no. There's not going to be, you know, if there's a gust of wind blowing in your direction, you're not going to really get a smell of hens. The hens themselves, if you're close to them, don't smell. It's only when the poo smells if it's fresh. As soon as it dries and things, it loses its smell, and it dries pretty quick, and within a day or two, really. So I'd say yeah. So I wouldn't say the smell. Do they attract rats? This is quite a common question, and a question that needs answering properly, really. So if you're familiar with sort of allotments and garden life and things in gardening, you'll have probably heard the expression that you're never a metre away from a rat. So do they attract rats? Probably yes, because if you're leaving food out and things, if your coop isn't secure, you'll definitely get rats going in there, getting the food, and then they'll just sort of colonise close by and keep returning. Now, around the bottom of my coop, I've hammered in some sheet metal, so probably about that deep, if you can see that, about that deep. This stops the rats. Obviously it's all meshed and things, so that tends to be good for that. So if you've got any holes or anything, rats will get in there. So just keep it as rat proof as possible. Everything I use for my hens and coop and things is listed in the description below. Their affiliate links, so feel free to check that out. It's galvanised mesh I use, and yeah, so if you can find yourself some metal sheeting or something, just hammer that in. Or if you pave around the outside, around the perimeter, that's good as well. Anything to stop the rats tunneling, basically. So yeah, in short, they will probably attract rats, but if you can do your best to keep them from actually getting in, then you're not going to have too many problems. Do they need worming? I like to worm mine once a year. Other people are different. If you're buying from a breeder, they'll be vaccinated but still might need worming, especially if they're free range. I'd say if they're free range, you definitely want to be worming once or twice a year. If they're in a coop, you can get away with probably just once a year. That being said, I do like to put apple cider vinegar in the water. So that's maybe once a month for a week. I'll pop a bit of apple cider vinegar in the water. That's a natural wormer, and just keeps the hens in good health, really, generally. Then once a year, I'll buy some pellets which have got fluben vet in them. I think that's what they call. I'll write the correct name on the screen. So replace the normal food, give them that for a week, and that's a wormer. So I do that once a year. Best floor material for the coop, anything soft. So I use wood chip, and it's the inside of the tree, the white of the tree, and not the bark, because the bark can sometimes get sort of fungi growing on it and mold and things, and that's not good for the hens' respiratory systems. So it's bark. You can leave bare earth, and that's fine. They'll just churn it up and scratching it anyway, so that's fine. Definitely not paving or gravel, anything like that, because it's too hard for them. They like to scratch and get in and peck in the soil and the chippings and things. What is a nesting box and how many nesting boxes do you need? A nesting box is basically where a hen goes to lay eggs. It tends to be a bit darker than the hen house or anywhere else in the coop, so they're often attracted to the darker spots to lay the eggs. When you get a flat pack hen house or a hen house, whatever hen house you buy, it'll often come with nest boxes already attached. So my coop, I've got 2 nest boxes, one on either side, and I've got 5 hens. That's absolutely fine. I'd say if you're keeping any more than 2 or 3, you want 2 nest boxes, because they do tend to lay on the morning, and obviously you don't want them to fight over the nest boxes. So are hens noisy? So we all know cockerels are noisy. We're not going to talk about cockerels, we're just going to concentrate on hens. Hens can be noisy. I'd say 80% of the day they're quiet, but they do have the odd spell where they really are quite loud, and if you have neighbours, you might want to just mention it to them first. That you're getting them. If you've got a particularly grumpy neighbour, you might be liable to complain. Potentially they are quite loud. So yeah, you just got to bear that in mind, I'd say. Can you keep them in a back garden? Yes. Obviously I've just mentioned about neighbours and things, so you just got to bear that in mind, and it just comes down to space, really, I'd say. So yeah, just weigh it up. More space is obviously better. But you can keep 1 or 2 hens in a smaller space, and that's absolutely fine. What do you feed chickens? So there's layers pellets. That's something you want to be giving them every day. That's the staple food. Mixed corn, you can sort of incorporate that with the pellets or give them that as a treat. Other treats, lettuce, cabbage, anything sort of succulent, fruit, vegetable peelings. I give mine weeds from the garden. when I'm digging weeds up, I make a pile and then pop them in the coop. They love them. Anything green, cooked spaghetti, cooked pasta. I don't give them meat for obvious reasons. Yeah, so I'd say keep it sort of to the sort of vegetable peelings and corn and things like that. Yeah, so that's about it really. There's no doubt I've missed questions out. You'll have probably loads more questions, so if you do, pop them in the the comments box below, and I'll do my best to answer them. If you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Also hit subscribe and help support the channel. And I'll be bringing more videos to you on chicken keeping and things. I've already got a few here as well, so feel free to check those out. So yeah, I think that's everything, so thanks for watching.